Hello and welcome. Our guest today is Professor Peter Gloor, a researcher affiliated with Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a leading scholar whose work focuses on how collaboration, trust, and network structures influence innovation. And Professor Gloor is widely known for developing the concept of collaborative innovation networks, COINs, so small self-organizing groups of people who share knowledge and ideas to create innovation. His research includes insights from management, data science, and analysis of social networks. We are speaking just ahead of for InnoPipe we are speaking just ahead of creative entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Peter, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, because I wanted just to say that, and then welcome, Professor, and can we? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we are speaking just ahead of creative entrepreneurship master classes organized by Koźmiński University as a part of For InnoPipe Innovation, where Professor will talk about high trust and high creativity teams. And thank you, Professor, for joining us today for conversation.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here. Should I introduce myself now?
I think yes.
Okay, so I have been studying for the last 24 years at MIT how teams collaborate. And this is based on my previous work, where for 10 years I was a section leader in software engineering at UBS. I was a partner and e-business leader for Switzerland of PwC, and partner and e-business leader at Deloitte for Europe. And what I found there is that while technology is great, and my PhD is in math and computer science, it's people. It's people who matter. And my best experiences always were in teams that were not hierarchical, but self-organizing and with people that were passionate about what they wanted to do. And that's what I have been studying for the rest of my career.
Okay, that's really wonderful to hear. Yes, and in much of your work, Professor, you explore how innovation emerges from networks of people rather than isolated individuals. And your concept of collaborative innovation network has been influential for many years. And what distinguishes a truly innovative group, team, network from the group that simply just collaborates?
Well, when I started studying it 22, 23 years ago, the common wisdom still was innovation is the genius in his office. He closes the door and he starts thinking, and wonderful ideas pop out of her or his head. Mm-hmm. But what I learned in my 10 years in industry, it's not true. It's a group, and it's basically a group of complementary skill sets that come together and self-organize. And they come up with totally unexpected ideas. And for me, great examples is Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. It's the way how the World Wide Web was created. It's Linux. That means you have somebody with a really crazy idea, but ideas are cheap. Making them come true is awfully hard. And so just we have the genius in his office and he comes up with a great idea. Mm-hmm. It goes nowhere. Only when you have a group of people that are similarly passionate will it succeed.
Okay, so that's that's this common passion that you also mentioned before the interview, right? So
yes.
Yeah. Okay. And you often speak about swarm leadership. And in nature, we see different swarms and collective movements of, for example, bees or other groups. And what can organizations learn from these natural systems when it comes to innovation, but also collaboration?
I think you mentioned the word leadership. Mm-hmm. Because if you go to mm-hmm. a big bank, if you go to the United States, you have the boss, the president, the CEO, but this is not what creates innovation. A swarm leadership means You get a group of like-minded people together. You provide the environment so they can do their best, and you let them free. And if you look at the web, at Linux, but also at many startups, Google, I mean, now it's a very big company, but in the earlier days, Microsoft, in the earlier days, they had smart people. They shared the vision of, at that time, Tim Berners-Lee, of Larry Page and Sergey Brin, and then they just started working. And the swarm leadership concept means you are not micromanaging people. You do the opposite. You just give them the environment and the freedom. But if we come back to the bees and the ants, it means they need to have the same DNA. So the leader's task is to get a group of people together that share his beliefs, or in the language of bees and ants, the same genome, genetic heritage.
And so this leadership is also like the concept that everyone knows what to do, right? So they know somehow they tasks, and they are just trusted with them.
Very much so. And you can say this is the DNA. It's the way how the group has been brought together. But because you attract people that share your values. I was fortunate to study Tim Berners-Lee when he created the web at the beginning, because he came to the team at MIT where I was a postdoc. And everybody there was already doing the same things. He basically just gave it a name and a purpose and the framework. And this is very important for the swarm leaders, he was very brave. He was very courageous. He left his job at CERN behind. He came to MIT. In the beginning, he was basically just going there and hoping that he would succeed. And then he found others that shared his values and started working with him, and they didn't have to give any orders. There were big fights and big discussions, but the basic ideas were totally understood and accepted.
That's also fascinating how those groups can work together without external pressure, and they can organize themselves. And you have also worked extensively with social metrics and data-driven analysis. And what can data reveal about how innovation emerges from teams and innovation and networks?
Well, we measure communication to make, you can call them hidden signals or honest signals visible, so that people know how they collaborate and what they can change to collaborate even better. And my most recent tool, I call it the social compass, measures the collaboration quality. It tells the team, it tells the person where they are efficient in collaboration, which things they are doing very well. It has two purposes. A, it shows you where you are doing very well. So it gives you compliments. And this is very important. It's one of my friends calls that sharing the sunshine. So that means you need to be praised. Everybody needs some praise and some support and some encouragement. And that's one of the purposes of the coins. You can be as critical to each other on the factual level, but be super respectful and super kind and super supportive of the other person. And in a coin, you have that environment. And if I look at successful coins, whether it's in a corporate world or whether it's self-organizing Wikipedians, they are always respectful. There is the Wikipedia editing wars, but they are it's never against a person. It's always just about things.
Yeah, so also very professional, I would say, that they concentrate on facts, but the personal level is the personal level, and still needs respect, a great dose of respect. And because it's connected also with well-being. So in your recent book, Happimetrics, you explore how data and AI can help measure trust, well-being, and collaboration inside the organization. So, what are the like you also mentioned that a second ago, but maybe there are also additional signs and behaviors that indicate that that a team is a high trust team. So, yeah.
Yes, the trust makes collaboration much more efficient. If you have to check on everything that the other person does, progress gets really slow. If you can just sort of self-navigate based on the goal that everybody buys in, transaction costs disappear and collaboration just gets so much more efficient. And I think that is the goal in those communities. What I like to say is, in a coin, do what you like with people you like. And the people that share your values and your beliefs, you tend to like a lot. I mean, there is this, you have the saying opposites attract, and you have another saying like and like goes together. And I think the opposite thing is innovation, because sometimes for innovation you need disruption, you need fight, you need destruction, but the team that works together, you want to be with people that you like. It's much nicer if you are with persons you like, people you like, and if you have to do some unpleasant work, you will do it very easily if you like the other people. If you get wonderful work and horrible people, you will hate it.
So true. That's so true, and I think so many people can relate to this. Really accurate, and yeah. So also taking this into account, what you just mentioned, Professor, if innovations increasingly emerge from networks than individual organizations, do you think that their competitive advantage in the future will lie not in companies themselves, but in quality of networks they are able to build? So,
Well, if you mention organization, a network is an organization. It's just not a hierarchical organization. It's a self-organizing organization, and in my view, that's the future. And if you look at the AI revolution, it actually helps us to manage those networks in better ways. And when you get this collaboration, and now you might not think that ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini is your collaboration partner, but if you take them as the glue to combine and connect with other people you like, then your productivity gets 10 or 100 times faster, and you can really do the things that you like best. So in that sense, I think an organizational form of the future that is a self-organizing network that is glued together by respect and by shared values and shared characteristics, shared behavior.
okay, that's wonderful. And how do you think that collective intelligence and those collaborative networks will shape the future of innovation?
I think the point is
Yes.
the past and the future, because there is collaboration networks in the past that weren't called coins because the concept wasn't known, but they were coins. And the famous one is the Royal Society, which was the science community started in Great Britain, but it had participants from all around Europe and the US and from around the world, and that was a coin. It was self-organizing, and you had the queen bee in the middle, that was the secretary or the president, and then you had many participants. And so in that sense, a coin is nothing new. What is new is AI. But if you look at computers in general, for the last 70 years, nothing new. The one thing that changes, speed of processing. millions and millions and millions times faster. But when I started my computer career, which is, I don't want to say it's like, then you know how old I am, like 35 years ago, same ideas. It's just they were very slow. And I remember when I was a PhD student in Zurich, we had neural networks of 3 to 5 nodes. And now it's
Okay.
millions and billions of nodes. It's just much, much, much. And at that time, everybody says it will never work and they are too slow. And this is how innovation works. You have, for a very long time, a lot of people that are protecting their own turf and that are saying it will never work, but it does. And then they will say, it's very clear and I always said it. So this is how innovation goes.
Okay, that's really impressive. Like example, I would say it started with 3 nodes, just 3 nodes.
Yeah,
And now
very
it's
small neural networks. And you could like add together 2 numbers. They couldn't do more than that.
Yes, and talking about artificial intelligence, because innovations emerges from networks of people who communicate, and this innovation like comes from the like pattern of sending signals and communicating. But nowadays, more and more people use AI as a mediator between communication, like while communicating. And do you think, Professor, that the AI will enhance like the creativity of people in the future and teams, or rather it will weaken the humans and teams' creativity? And and here I mean by centralizing like the knowledge here.
Well, AI is a technology. And technology can be put to good use. It can be put to horrible use. You can have self autonomous drones and they can kill. But of course, you can also have Wikipedia on steroids. For me, a large language model like Claude, like ChatGPT, like Gemini is Wikipedia on steroids because you can just ask any question you want. And when you put any question into Wikipedia, you get some very hard to read, complex text that you don't understand. But with ChatGPT, you just tell it to answer your question in as simple language as you want, and then you can understand it. And then you can even ask it to give you creative ideas, and it will. And so, in that sense, in my view, but I have always been an incurable optimist, it's a wonderful, huge opportunity, but it also opens up huge, huge risks because it can be abused very easily.
Yeah, obvious. And I think that's like the one pros of the AI is that it is not precise enough, that people still have to communicate and ask questions to one another to get knowledge and to share it with others and ask questions.
Well, what I observed since LLMs are around, which is like 2-3 years, is that I have been a software developer and a computer scientist and a mathematician for my career. And the way how I practice my art or my craft or my skill set has totally changed. Because in the beginning, it's sort of, I was a plumber or I was a bricklayer, and now I'm an architect. That means the LLM, AI, has taken away all the unpleasant part of my work. I just describe what I want, and I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the concept of vibe coding, which basically means you describe in English, or you can also use Polish, because LLMs are very good in understanding whatever language you want, what the software that you want to build is supposed to do, and it will do it for you. But you need to ask the right questions. So as a teacher and professor, the art is not anymore to teach how bubble sort works, but to ask the right questions of, I need to sort a list of numbers, or not even talk about sorting, but I want a system that is going to administrate my finances. I want a system that does the accounting for my university, and that it will give you the software. So, as the architect, you just describe the goal,
Yes. Yeah.
and Claude gives you the answer, gives you the software, gives you the running system. But if you ask the wrong question, it gives you a very bad result. And that's what I have to teach when I'm teaching, because when I'm teaching, my seminar is called Coins, but it's also about how to use software, how to use computers to solve those problems. And for that, I have to teach how to ask those questions.
Okay. So a new kind of question that people ask is how to use, for example, AI, and not maybe. So they start also collaborating on this aspect to understand it and to get the best possible use of it, maybe.
Yes, and the productivity is now 10 times higher
Okay.
if you know what you want to get. I can give you an example of when you train a machine learning system to translate from the language of, let's say, humpback whales to human language.
Okay.
You need training data. In AI, that's basically the same thing as when you translate from Chinese to Polish.
Okay.
Humpback whale language to human language.
Yeah.
But your training set needs to be well balanced. Or putting it in other words, if you have 1 million human words and 3 million and only a dozen humpback whale words, your machine learning system will not work because the data training set is totally unbalanced. And those are the sort of things that the student only will understand once he has stumbled in it and discovered that if you have an unbalanced data set for training an AI machine learning system, it will not work. So you need to be very diligent and collect a lot of words, a lot of vocabularies of humpback whales to be able to translate that to human language.
Yeah, and so now, so I also have questions. Whether you, professor, want to answer them? They are more like about your current work.
Okay.
So because you said, I'm not sure whether we can talk about it before it's published, but
Fine.
because you talked also about like the concept of examining like different animals, or for example trees and plants, and how they can, like, what they can tell us about like human communication, or like what is their how they can translate into our language, and the topic of our today's discussion maybe.
Well, we have actually two different aspects of using animals as an inspiration. One is human teams, because in the beginnings of when I tried to come up in user interface design, they are called personas, different archetypical behavioral groupings of people that always behave like, and then I take a type of animal, they are like a bee, because the bee builds the beehive. The bee is very selfless, altruistic, because it cares about the hive. It's willing to sacrifice its own good for the hive. The ant would be very similar in that regard. But the bee is even better because the bee pollinates. The ant is more competitive, but if you look at success on Earth, ants are much more successful. So being an ant gets you farther than being a bee. But the bee pollinates. And if we wouldn't have pollination, no apples, no fruit, no honey, whereas the ant is just there, but it's caring about other ants. But still, it's super successful. I think there is many, many more ants than humans, and the biomass of ants is huge. So, inspiration of animals, we have roles, and by now I have developed 5 roles of team players, actually 4 roles of team players and 1 destructive role, which I call the leech.
Okay.
The leech is the selfish person that just cares about themselves. And I mentioned before sharing the sunshine, which means giving credit to others. The leech steals the sunshine.
Okay.
It claims credit for other people's work, and that's very bad because it very much frustrates the other people. But the systems that we are building, which I call the social compass, they will basically show a person if it's too leechy, and then the person can change the behavior, hopefully. But then we have the bee, we have the ant, and then there is two other roles that I discovered are also quite important. One, which I saw yesterday at the Oscars, that's the butterfly. The butterfly makes others happy. Watching a movie, going to an amusement park, listening to a concert, looking at paintings. Butterflies. Initially, you might say, what is this good for? Happiness. You spoke about happiness before. And well-being and happiness is absolutely essential. And everybody wants to be happy. And you have two ways of being happy. In Greek philosophy, you have eudaimonia, that's selfless happiness. Then you have sex and drugs and rock and roll, and that's hedonistic happiness, egoistic happiness. Having an A380 as your private plane and having an aircraft carrier as your own yacht, that's very selfish. It makes the individual person initially happy, but you need more and more. You start with having a nice car, and then you get the bigger car and the bigger car and the bigger car, and you discover it doesn't really make you so much happier. But if you are contributing to happiness of community, and I like to say, making you happy makes me happy. If you are in such a group, it also makes you happy. And in such community, in such a coin, you get really unbelievable results. And it basically means don't scream and yell at others, but to treat them very respectfully, give credit to each other. And this is, by the way, animal number 5, the capybara. The capybara, it's very under-recognized. But I have some very good friends, they are not the greatest, they are academics, and they don't have a high age index, but they are deans and presidents, not because they are super researchers, but because they are so nice, because they are kind, because they know how to get along with all those professors that have inflated egos. It's being at a place like MIT, it's full of people with very, very inflated egos. And just across the river, there is another place which has even more inflated egos, and it's called Harvard. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But the capybara basically gets them along. And if I look at the most successful deans, at the most successful university presidents, at the most successful CEOs, they are capybaras. You can have the selfish ones, they do not last. They get to the top, and after a few years, they are out. When you are a capybara, the organization thrives. So those are the 5. The bee, the ant, and then a little bit of leechiness everybody needs, because otherwise we will starve. If you have a bee that sells her kidney for the good of the community, that's not good for everybody because the bee will die. So a bit of leechiness is necessary, but not too much. And then 2 new animals I wasn't aware of, the butterfly for beauty and happiness, and the capybara that is the glue of the community. So this is, now sorry for having this long answer, this is the one inspiration of the animals, but the other one is translation system, a Google Translate that basically allows us to communicate with animals and with plants. And this is my most recent work of the last 5 to 7 years. I'm still working on human coins. Just like with those 5 role models, I have developed one app which is called the Symbionts, which will tell you how much you are a bee, an ant, a leech, a capybara, and a butterfly. But we are also working on translation systems so that we can use a plant as a biosensor. And we are working right now with some greenhouse farmers, because you can use that to measure well-being of plants, for example, because they will tell you, now I call it, they will tell you, but basically what you just measure their brainwaves actually, which is the voltage curves of how they adapt to the environment, and then you can see whether they have too much water, not enough fertilizer, too much sun, and so on. Much faster. It's sort of like an ECG, but for plants. So that's one of my most recent works. Another one is a translation system where we try to understand what horses and dogs are they happy or unhappy, and again using the same sort of AI, and that's why it's very straightforward. In the beginning, I looked at human communication, and we developed some sort of AI to translate the honest signals of humans for other team members. It turns out you can use exactly the same sort of AI to translate dog parks and horse movements, and also the voltage changes of plants. You could call them the brain waves, but biologists would kill me if I would use those human-centric words to see how the plants are doing and how we can change the environment for them to thrive.
Yeah, I think that about this research on France, I also saw like a video from a few years back then, and it was about measuring whether the plant can like identify reacts whether the person is sad, upset, or happy, something like that. So it was also
We have
about
done
also-
that about 5-6 years ago. It's basically just a Microsoft V. It measures the electric field of the human because we move differently when we are happy and when we are sad. And then the plant is sort of like an antenna.
Okay.
And we can translate the changes in their brain waves. I mean, it's called the action potentials. Action potentials are usually used for humans when we have neurons, and they communicate by changes in voltage. And we can use exactly the same hardware and the same software to translate changes in voltage of plants.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's really incredible, and I wonder how it will shape the future also, and how it will look in the future, because that's really
Nobody
broad.
knows. But I like that. It's basically, it's a green field. It's open. I hope to just increase communication, not just between humans, but between all living beings, so that in the end, us humans will also communicate in a better way.
Yeah, in a better way. And so that's even develop, if I can say so, it develops even the concept of coins to a broader network.
Very much so.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
That's really wonderful. So yes, thank you, Professor, very much for this fascinating and very insightful conversation. And I'm really glad that I had this pleasure to speak with you today. And your research reminds us that innovation often emerges from networks, like very broad networks, not isolated individuals. And understanding how these collective networks work, and how what is the role of trust, communication, and collective intelligence here. I think that's it seems increasingly important in a world where innovation more and more depends on the collaboration between different teams, organizations, and disciplines also. So yes, and thank you very much for sharing your insights with us, and for helping us better understand this broad topic. And thank you to everyone who joined us today for this conversation, especially to students, researchers, and members of Koźmiński University community.
Thank you very much for having me here.